Happy Thursday, and welcome to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Siffel, and we've got a big one on tap here today on this bye-week edition of Husker Online Headlines. But before we get to that, Husker Online Headlines brought to you by StayHome.Care. Your home, our care. Get accessible and personalized in-person care in the comfort of your home, whether it's helping with daily tasks like cleaning, laundry, meal preparation, offering medication reminders, or assisting with personal care and errands. They're there for you to make life easier, serving Lincoln, Omaha, and all of Nebraska. Check them out at their website at StayHome.Care to learn more, or just give them a call. You might have some questions about some of the services they offer. Call them at 402-205-2233. Our heart is with you. StayHome.Care. All right, let's get into it, Sip, because I want to welcome in a very special guest to kick off headlines. Let's welcome in the athletic director from the University of Nebraska, Troy Dannen, joining us here on this bye week. And Sip, you want to start this off? Where do you want to go?
Well, I mean, Troy, I kind of want to go to the news of the week. The news of the week, Matt Rule hiring a couple consultants, Dana Holgorsen and Phil Snow. Troy, I've been describing this as unique. This hiring with 3 games to go is a unique development. Is it unique in your mind? And at what level do you discuss something like that with Matt?
Well, I would say first, Phil's been a consultant already.
Okay.
Dana's new to it, but Phil's been involved a little bit from a distance and looking at tape and giving Matt input because he's worked with Matt before. But I would say it's not totally unusual. Maybe more often than not, people don't see it. But I know my time at Tulane, 2 or 3 different times where a coach brought somebody in just to get a different set of eyes and what are you seeing, what are you feeling from somebody that hasn't been around it every day. You tend to get different perspectives sometimes, and you see things every day. You miss some of the obvious. So not totally off board. I know both guys. Obviously, when I was at Tulane and Dana was in the league at Houston, we played against him. I know my coach there, and I know Matt's regard for him as he is an offensive genius, and so I was excited to know we were going to get his perspective, and Phil's a legend. Again, I'll never forget when I was at Tulane, we played Temple. Phil was on the sidelines, and we thought we were going to beat him. We got beat 35-0, and that 0 was his doing. And after the game, my coach walked up to him and said, "That'll never happen again." And I was so enthused to hear my coach say that at the time. Yeah. But since that game, thinking we had a pretty good team and getting goose egged by him, I had a pretty good idea of what he's all about as well.
Troy, just these last 3 games now to close out the year, can you just size up the importance of this stretch, what it means for the program to try to get bowl eligible and the task at hand now Nebraska faces?
Well, I mean, I think everybody's expectation going into the season, you'd find your way to get to 6 and, take that at least a step beyond where we've been for the last few years. And so, yeah, they're important games. I think the one thing the Big Ten, since we got in the league play, showed us, there's not a lot of separation from top to bottom in the league, and so I think if you don't make errors, you have a chance to win every game, and so they're having this bye week to regroup a little bit, reassess what you do, and head down the stretch. I think one thing for all of us, and I think for the underclassmen in the program, the idea of getting these seniors to a postseason game, who've given a lot and haven't gotten a lot of reward yet, is on everybody's mind. And the other thing I would tell you guys, I think there's a burden to bear for what hasn't happened here in the last decade or so that nobody that's a part of this program is responsible for, but yet they wear that burden through the fans. And so there's maybe a little extra pressure, a little extra different perspective, because this isn't just let's win one for the seniors and let's get to the bowl game. It's like, I think given what's happened again for the last 7 years of not going, and maybe the last 10 years or even longer, I think everybody is in the realization that to get the program turned to the direction you want to go, you need to find a way to find success down this stretch.
Troy, let's talk Memorial Stadium now, because obviously it's been in the discussion for quite some time, renovations. Do you have an update, a timeline, when you might have more details on Memorial Stadium here moving forward?
Yeah, I think I have a letter ready to send to the fan base just with a few updates, and
Okay.
and I think that's probably going to go out next week. But in it, I talk about the stadium that I would guess first quarter of 25 that we will unveil the entire project. Where I'm at right now, I think we've got a pretty good handle on design, getting a pretty good handle on the financial model, and once those two things intersect, hopefully by Thanksgiving I'll have everything in my hands. Meet with the president of the administration, get to the board, talk to them about it, and then roll something out sooner rather than later. I would tell you at this point in time, and a lot of things, if there's uncertainty in college athletics, that's the only certainty right now. But probably post 26, the south end comes down, and then you rebuild half of it. There is no way to do this without taking the entire south end down. And really the south end is it may not be the revenue generator in this, but structurally and physically it is the domino that makes everything else happen. And then there'll be some work on the east. There'll be I think really deep comprehensive work on the west inside the tower. The question, I think, whether you take everything down inside the west, inside the tower, or you just build over the top of it. There's a lot of deferred maintenance, and figuring out how we can do this project and take care of the deferred maintenance and still not have millions of dollars of work to do when this thing is all done. So I think that right now is the rough timeline. 26, we have Tennessee in here. I'd like to be at full capacity in 26. 27 we'll be down some in capacity, but that south end is not going to be empty. And the one thing insisted in this, we can't have a full end zone empty for a full season. So there'll be a lot of work done, a lot of fast work done. But in a perfect world, assuming the money lines up, 26, 27.
Without giving away, Troy, what you're going to, this letter you're going to send to the fans, are there any elements of this project that are particularly important to you that you want to see in this new configured stadium? We there's a couple of things. One, I hate to say money, but we're going to be paying our athletes. We have to drive revenue inside the stadium. 43% of the seats that have a gift required to occupy those seats, 43% of those seats don't have that gift. They're grandfathered in. And if those gifts were received, that's $22 million a year in basically unrealized revenue inside the stadium. We have to realize that revenue. We have to get our premium areas better. I mean, I think people have done a great job here of adapting to the inadequacies of the stadium. Mm-hmm. But from travel to restrooms to travel about the stadium, just to what we're really able to provide, let alone then integrating alcohol sales and integrating the new things that we need to do. I look at those suites and we don't have any loge areas. Loge is the highest premium thing going right now in new stadiums. And the suites, none of them have outdoor seating. And so, looking at some of those things as to whether there's an ROI associated with loge and outdoor suites, but getting the comfort. So obviously we've got to get the Wi-Fi fixed, but that's going to be a part of and that's a $10 to $15 million project in and of itself within the stadium piece.
Troy, when you talk alcohol sales, do you envision just canned beer being available like we saw for the Garth Brooks show and the volleyball day in Nebraska, or would there be a tap beer option as well, possibly?
That I don't know. We've got that concessions RFP out right now, and my guess is you don't go to many stadiums and see taps. Just against speed, everything's about speed. Anything you can put in a can. I see gin and tonic and vodka soda in a can. So I think anything you see in a can is liable to show up in the concourses. You may see tap beer and maybe some higher end typical well pours when you get into the club seating and the premium areas. But until we have a concessionaire who gets that contract, and they know what sells, they know how it moves, and they know how much of what beer to put in. So we're really relying on their expertise. relying on their pricing expertise. And it's not just the alcohol. It's once that concessionaire gets in here, there's more food options. There needs to be more food options than we have right now. And so how do we integrate those things in? Because right now we have very limited vertical transportation and elevators through the stadium. So how do we move food around? How do we move hot food around? So trying to figure out what we can do right away next year and what comes with the stadium renovations in a year or two down the line.
One more on that stadium renovation. There's one item that really has interested me. It's been brought up to you a couple times. I heard you discuss it in a speech in Omaha, the possibility of like a Bud Crawford fight, or not. If it's not a Bud Crawford fight, do you still see the possibility of a big mega event at Memorial Stadium, like the Garth Brooks concert or the volleyball day in Nebraska?
Have to.
Okay.
I've reached out to Bud's people about him fighting in the stadium. There is a standing offer there. A boxer's world is unique as to when they fight and where they fight. So if it works, it works. But we will plan our budget long term. Starting next year, we'll have 2 events in the stadium a year.
Okay.
And whether it can be a mega event, that sells out 90,000, it really depends on who's touring, right? From a music standpoint, but even doing 30,000 seat shows, with up and comers who then, the second time around, then they're selling the stadiums out. So, we need to get into that. I know the Big Ten's working on maybe a Big Ten stadium tour where we could actually book in the Big Ten an act that would hit 8, 9, 3, whatever Big Ten stadiums and just work around. Wow. So there's a lot of, we have to be really creative about how we use the stadium, not just 7 days a year.
Okay, interesting.
No Taylor Swift concerts yet, though, right?
If my daughter had her way, yes, we would have Taylor Swift. But my guess is Taylor Swift will not be making the rounds for stadiums for a little while, but we'll see her again, and we'll try to be on that list. Trust me.
Yeah, I had to ask that question for my daughters as well. But I want to ask you too, Troy, about the $22.5 million and the revenue sharing ahead, because we get asked this all the time. Any idea how that money is going to be divided amongst your sports, whether it's a Title IX or based on the revenue value of that sport? Do you have an idea what direction this is heading?
Well, I'm going to qualify my answer by saying this. I've been very careful not to speak publicly for 2 reasons. One, I think those who are speaking publicly are out over their skis a little bit. There are 100 questions that I don't have answers for. And I'll just give you one right off the top. The roster of 105 in football, is that 105 365 days a year? Is it 105 during the football season, or is it some hybrid of it? Right now we're carrying 145, 150 through spring ball and through summer, and we cut to 120 in camp, and then after the first game we go back to 150. So what does this model look like? There's a lot of those. We have to get answers. The devil's always been in the details, and so that part of it I'm waiting on. Secondly, particularly as it comes to the big picture money stuff, because it's active litigation and because it hasn't been resolved, I've been really hesitant. We haven't committed final numbers to our coaches. I've started to talk to them, and conceptually I've met with every coach and from rifle and bowling to football, just about how this model can play out in their benefit, trying to get their creative juices flowing to how it can be handled. I think the election, within college athletics, I think the fact that all 3 chambers have lined up with one party, whatever party it's going to be,
right,
means that we were always going to see a direction or something happen coming into the new Congress if all 3 lined up. How that impacts operationalizing the House settlement, should it finally settle, is another reason I'm trying to keep my powder a little bit dry. But the decision not fully made yet on how the money's going to be distributed. I will tell you the only thing that's absolute that I've told our coaches is we're not cutting scholarships and we're not cutting sports. And so for us, generating additional revenue and reallocating our existing expenses. We've got to look. We're a $200 million operation. Do we really need to be spending $200 million at what we do, or is there a better way to take a piece of that money and allocate it toward this new expense, versus what we've been doing. And that's the exercise that a lot of our leadership team has been doing over the last couple of months. I would tell you,
go ahead.
60% of my day is contemplating how we're going to operationalize and how this settlement will play out.
Back to those mega events at Memorial Stadium, which is very fascinating. You said it has to happen. You say we have to. Is that because does that comment occur in the context of this conversation?
It does. We have to generate revenue in ways other than raise ticket prices. And that's the easy grab. Well, internally, now every season, every ticket's the same price in the stadium, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense either. So once the stadium's done, we'll have to reevaluate how we ticket and how we price. I don't want to raise ticket prices until the stadium's done. I'd like to find ways other than the fans paying for it to get this new revenue model fully implemented. The alcohol sales piece is low-hanging fruit that, frankly, we have the ability to take advantage of, but a lot of other institutions have already done. So things like that, it's utilizing the stadium for revenue-generating events that's going to help us grow revenue without growing on the backs of raising ticket prices.
How much revenue could alcohol sales bring just on your rough estimates right now?
I think when you start looking at what we can sell, and on top of that, the signage and the when I say the multimedia aspect of it, and sponsorship of club areas and things like that, maybe $7 to $8 million a year, to the top line of the budget, which is significant when you're looking at the expense increase that we're looking at moving forward.
Well, Troy, we appreciate your time here on the bye week. The football season's just flown by. It's hard to believe we just got 3 games left here before things wrap up.
Yeah, I know. It's as basketball started, somebody reminded me, I started here at the end of the basketball season last year, obviously at first week of the tournament. So in some ways, this has almost been a full cycle, even though I've got a few months for that first year. It is hard to believe where we're at. But I'll also tell you this. It is, regardless of whether people want us to be 9-0 in football or 5-4, like we said today. This place is greater than I could have ever imagined coming in here, I'm more excited every morning when I wake up, no matter what's happening competitively, because I know we can get where we want to get. I know we have the wherewithal to use whatever changes are coming in the enterprise to leapfrog some people that we've been chasing, because historically we've done such a good job of building this ship, if you will. Now is I think where it's going to take off and really pay dividends and benefits going forward.
Yeah, you're almost a second year AD now. I guess it never dawned on me until you just said that. You're almost second year AD, Troy Dannen.
Well, I would say this. I've got a year's worth of travel and speaking all throughout the state of Nebraska. If I had hair, it would have been gone, because it's been a wild year because of the short transition at Washington too. But getting the family here, getting everybody situated, and going to my kids' practices along, whenever I don't have a Husker home event, it's a great time. It's a great time for us. I really love the coaching staff here. I really love the staff we have running this department on a day-to-day basis. And the other thing is the part of why I hungered for Nebraska was because of the fishbowl. It was because of the scrutiny. It's because of you can't beat places that care, sometimes that gets a little toxic and caustic, and I get it. But you know what? Nothing beats people wanting things to be better and caring about it and striving to make things better. And I think we've got that in-house as well as outside the house. So I've actually I've lived a lot of the extremes here in the last month.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm thrilled with that, because if people didn't care, I've seen it, and it makes waking up in the morning and going home at night a lot less fun when you know that people don't care and people aren't watching what you do.
Well, Troy, thank you again for your time. I can tell you on your speaking events, you reached legendary status at Holy Ghost. They want you back. They loved you down there.
Oh, it was fascinating. I saw it.
Well, that's because I gave them auction items and they were able to raffle them off. And so the one secret is every time I go someplace, I try to put something into their auction, because then no matter what I say, no matter how bad I am as a speaker, they remember this guy gave us something. So that's I learned that a long, long time ago. But that was a neat event, and I'm actually headed to Omaha tonight to meet with about 50 or 60 NIL guys and women who've supported 1890, and we'll get pumped up with them.
We'll raise some money.
Exactly. That's the name of the game.
Yep.
Well, hey, thanks again, Troy, for joining us here. We're looking forward to seeing you out in LA.
Thanks a ton.
All right.
All right. Thanks again to Nebraska AD Troy Dannen for joining us here in HuskerOnline Headlines. Before we get to that, Sip, HuskerOnline Headlines brought to you by Mando. And there is no bigger fan of Mando than Stephen M. Sipple. In fact, you've sold Mando so well to our listeners, they have renewed into the first quarter of next year.
Yeah, if I were a dude out there, I'd start with the soap. I've touted that a few times, but the spray deodorant, it's a body spray, and it's a game changer. That stuff is good. I mean, it's legit. I need to get a few bars of soap. And again, I'll reiterate what I said the other day on the air. I took that on the road with me.
You traveled with the soap.
I traveled with the soap. I made sure I brought it.
I hope you had a baggie for it at least.
I did.
Okay. You just had a loose soap bar in your suitcase, but
you know me too well.
Well,
I may have had a baggie. Let's put it that way.
We've got a great deal. If you've never tried Mando, you're going to love their product. Visit their website at shopmando.com. Get the Mando starter pack. And it comes with deodorant, cream tube deodorant, plus free two free products of your choice, and free shipping. It's already discounted. We're going to take another $5 off. So it comes out to about 40% off total with our discount. You got to use the promo code Husker at shopmando.com. That's promo code Husker at shopmando.com for the Mando starter pack. Thanks again to Mando for sponsoring us here on Husker Online Headlines. But fascinating. Let's get into Troy Dannen because, it's the first time we've really actually had an opportunity to, sit down like that with him, and, just so much to get to from that interview, from the stadium to the NIL to the events to the football season. Where do you want to go first?
I would say that standing offer to Bud Crawford is very interesting. That a standing offer for Bud Crawford at Fight Memorial Stadium, coupled with this news, I guess. I don't think he's ever said that we're going to have two events. We're going to have two big events a year is what he basically said, right?
Two big events a year, but then also South Stadium, that they're going to have to tear it down completely. Mm-hmm. But I think they wanted to start with it partially
after 2026.
So two more seasons, this season and next season.
But I think before then you'll have some big ticket events in that stadium. And I don't know that it would be a 90,000 it'd be 90,000 people like the Garth Brooks concert or the Volleyball Day in Nebraska. But that was interesting to me. And just the fact that there's a standing offer, that he said there's a standing offer to Bud Crawford. That was very interesting. He was very receptive to Matt Rule's hiring of Phil Snow and Dana Holgorsen. He played it down a little bit.
And he was quick to correct. Phil Snow's been consulting all year.
Right. But not in-house.
No, but from a distance. He
right.
speaks and consults year round, and this is the first time he'd been in the office.
Right. And honestly, Holgorsen's the bigger.
Yeah, that's
what people are talking about. And you heard Troy Dannen referred to Holgorsen as a genius, an offensive genius, and obviously was very receptive to this. So I thought that was interesting. What else did you?
Dana Holgorsen is young, by the way. He's only 53.
Yeah, he's like
he became a head coach at a really young age.
He was very, very. He ascended quickly in that business. He's an aggressive go-getter, which, again, he's type A alpha, and that's what makes this partly interesting to me, because he's an alpha, and he's not gonna come in and sit in the back of the room and be unheard.
And we'll get into Holgorsen in the next.
So
let's hold those thoughts.
What else? What you asked about the 22.5 million.
Well, what caught my attention on that number of dollars is there are 43% of seats that should have donations that are grandfathered.
Okay.
And if those seats were paying what their donation value was, that's another $20 million of revenue.
22, he said.
22. So his wheels are spinning on Nebraska is leaving that money on the table. And, it always did fascinate me over the years when you see like Nebraska's budget numbers compared to peers. Like Nebraska's high, but I'm always like, why are they lower than like some of these teams? Because they draw better and this and that. Well, because of some of those revenue numbers they've left on the table. I mean, think about what he just told us. There's $22 million in seat donations that they're not taking right now, tied to seats that should be paying. And there's another $8 million. There's another $8 million on alcohol sales.
Okay. Now,
so $30 million of revenue that they're going to find from the stadium renovation when they get the seats updated and put the donations on there. And look, the grandfather model Nebraska uses, and we've done a deep study on this. There's no other stadium in the country that has anything close to a model of Nebraska's where 43% of people are grandfathered in
and don't pay licensing fees.
Don't pay licensing fees.
Okay, so they don't pay licensing fees. Now, is there any hesitancy on your part to point to the importance of fans paying licensing fees when the team's struggling?
I think what will happen, though, is you're going to shrink capacity and you're going to upgrade the experience of the stadium. Okay. So what you lose, you'll still fill the stadium. I mean, that's the hope. You'll still fill the stadium. And that was Trev's initial plan. I think it was to take the stadium from 86, 88,000 like it is now, probably down to like 72 to 75 in that range. And we never got a hard number on that. But he did confirm, they have to tear down all of South Stadium. I mean, that wasn't when they built South Stadium. That was one thing they didn't really think out very well, just building it up without connecting it to the concourse of the East and the West.
Okay. Now, the one question I didn't get to ask because he kind of started to answer it was I was going to ask him in his role, Troy Dannen, how much concern do you have about fan apathy, which we've discussed internally? It sounds to me from his closing comments, his comments later in the appearance with us, that he's not worried about it. Now there's some fans that are reacting in a harsh manner to these, for instance, UCLA loss, but it doesn't sound like he's concerned. It didn't sound to me like apathy was a concern.
Well, they're right there. That's the thing. Like, I mean, it feels
like
they
right there.
I mean, they lost by 7 points to UCLA, and they played probably the worst game they could have played. They lost in overtime to Illinois, and they didn't play very well.
Yeah.
And they lost by 3 points or 4 points at Ohio State. Right. I mean, so you think about it and like, one score. What? It's not like they're getting blown out. The Indiana game was somewhat of an anomaly, but Indiana's blown out everybody.
Sean, I'm going to tell you something now. People are listening to you going, oh, here we go again with Scott Frost talk. They're close.
No, I know. But I'm saying in the way the season, I mean, I'll go back to the start of the year. The first 6 weeks of the season, I mean, you couldn't get a ticket in that stadium.
Very exciting.
The buzz, the excitement was really, I mean, the price on the secondary market was as high as I had seen. And it was the night games, the atmosphere, the drone shows. And it's amazing just what a game like Indiana can do to your season, what a game like UCLA can do to your mindset, because people want it so bad.
And that's what the AD Troy Dannen was just referring to. I think it's really valuable for Dannen to do these sorts of interviews because people get a good look at him. That was a good interview. I mean, he was really good. And I saw him, I happened to see him at the Omaha Holy Ghost event. And if you attended that event and listened to him, it was fascinating. It was. You know me, I'm not easily fascinated. I could yawn through that pretty easily, but I didn't. I was like, okay, interesting. Because I mean, he did talk about the Crawford thing there. He talked about a lot of stuff there. But there's a lot for him to consider. And I can't imagine what his days are like. Oh, the other big news out of this, Sean, no sports going to be cut. No sports at Nebraska. That around the country, you're going to see sports cut.
See, and Nebraska had already kind of done that to an extent with men's swimming. And did they cut another sport back in that?
Don't do this
period
off the fly. Don't do this.
But they were very close at one point getting rid of men's gymnastics, but they've invested so much. Think about what they've invested. Gymnastics at Nebraska has the beautiful facility.
Yeah, over at the
Devaney, and then they have a great spot, and they get good crowds for the events there. And the tennis team, men's and women's, phenomenal tennis facility right now.
Yeah.
That's built up. And, I don't want to speculate too much, but I think there's some more things on the horizon with golf that's going to come to Nebraska down the road. The only sport that really hasn't been invested in as far as facilities is swimming. They continue to swim in that older pool at the Dannen.
Real old.
And, they don't have a men's team, and I don't think that's in the cards to just build a new pool. It's too much money.
No, I hate to say it this way, but the swimming team should just be happy there's a swimming team. That's really harsh.
They just beat Kansas this week for the first time in 12 years.
God dang, nice knowledge there.
Well,
Sean, dropping some knowledge.
I talked to Patrick Rowe and the associate. I was my daughter's on the Husker swim team, so we were talking. He said he got a little chippy. Kansas's coaches were not happy to lose to Nebraska women. They stormed off the pool deck, didn't even shake hands.
I like it.
So Pablo and they're doing a good job with that women's team for not having a men's program.
And I like, as an alum, I don't mind saying it, I'm an alum. I like that Nebraska doesn't cut sports. I've always sort of feared that might happen. And then for Troy Dannen to say that actually means a lot to me.
Well, they're well attended in everything.
And this state cares about softball. They care about
soccer.
Sports. Soccer.
It's off our radar because we're busy during these times of year. But when they play over, is it Hibner Stadium?
Yeah, it is Hibner Stadium, right off of Cornhusker.
It fills up.
Yeah, does it?
The track teams won the Big Ten this year. they had a phenomenal year in every sport.
I don't want to short anybody. All those sports are important, but I'm happy. I'm happy that he said that. There was a lot he said there that was interesting. That was thank you to Troy. That was more valuable than I even thought it would be.
All right. Before we take it to headline number 2, HuskerOnline headline number 3, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by HelloFresh. If you're not familiar with HelloFresh, it's so simple. You download their app, go on their website, you pick the specific meals you want, and they give you all the ingredients. So there might be, you pick 2 meals for the week, 3 meals, 4 meals. You're cooking for 2, you're cooking for 4. You decide the ones you want. They send you the meats, the produces, the spices, everything you need to make the meals. It comes in a cooler and you cook it yourself. So these aren't frozen TV dinners set at your doorstep. This is fresh produce, fresh meat that you cook, and you can have a lot of fun with it. It saves you a lot of time too. And honestly, the pricing is identical or cheaper in some cases than going to the grocery store and buying everything right now. So check it out at their website at hellofresh.com/freehusker. If you use that hellofresh.com/freehusker, we're going to give you 10 free meals applied over your next 7 boxes. That's for new subscribers. Again, that's 10 free HelloFresh meals at hellofresh.com/freehusker. Thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Excellent product. I recommend giving it a try. We love HelloFresh and all the different options they give you and your family, and they save you a lot of time. All right, let's get into headline number 3. What type of impact could Dana Holgorsen have on Nebraska as you look at this SIP? It's going to be interesting, just big picture, what this means for Nebraska having Dana Holgorsen here in Lincoln.
Well, the topic is fascinating because it's fascinating because it sort of elicits a lot of speculation, because we won't hear from Matt Rule about this till Monday, right? He won't be asked in an official manner until Monday. Unless someone, maybe someone gets an interview with Matt this weekend, although he probably pretty hard. He is going to be at a high school game Friday, watching 5-star Jackson Cantwell. He'll be back in town late Friday night or Saturday, but no, I would imagine there's not going to be a whole lot of. There's a lot of like so much of the conversation is speculative, but we know he's here. We know about his background. He is an air raid guy. Doesn't mean, see, that's one of the questions, Sean, that I've gotten this week. Does this mean the air raid could be coming to Nebraska if he were to become the next OC, which seems possible? I don't know. My guess, with everything Matt Rule has said about the importance of running the ball well in the Big Ten, I doubt that Rule's going to do an about face and say, hey guys, we made a kind of a radical decision. We're going to the air raid. I don't see it. you can take elements of what Holgorsen does and apply it to this offense. One more thing, Sean. For instance, is the vertical passing game. He's a vertical passing game guy, comes from the Leach tree. A guy that knows this stuff was telling me the other day, a former coach was saying, Sipple, there were practices where Leach would run all vertical routes at a practice. Now, but those receivers read coverage and then break off those routes. They might sit, it's go or sit, depending on what the coverage is. So there's a lot that he could do to help Nebraska's downfield passing game. Doesn't mean it'd be limited to that. It could be formations, bunch sets, stuff like that.
Yeah. You look at bringing him in. I use this analogy. It'd be like Lane Kiffin joining Nebraska's coaching staff. I mean, as far as
fired Lane Kiffin,
a fired Lane Kiffin sitting out right now, and all of a sudden you just bring him into the office. I mean, I don't think Husker fans, grasp the significance of having.
I think a lot of them do.
A guy like that just come up, and I think if you're smart, you kind of know what's going on here.
Well, I think so. Now
it's kind of a test run to see if this is going to work.
Maybe.
And if it works, he might be the offensive coordinator next year. I don't think anyone's going to challenge you on that right now.
No, I wouldn't challenge that. A test run. Interesting. What could it bear some immediate fruit? That's the question. Like against USC, which is changing quarterbacks, Nebraska's got to deal with that. Now USC has to deal with, and I guarantee you they're dealing with this. Whoa, what, they got Holgorsen over there looking at stuff? What could that produce? So USC has to look at Holgorsen's past. They have to look at film of what he's done over his career.
To me, it's as simple as, can he give Nebraska 3 or 4 just new things that work, that change that don't overdo it, but maybe just reanalyze what they're doing.
For sure. Now you can keep the conversation going, though. Just keep going, keep pushing it forward. Could Dana Holgorsen call plays against USC? The answer is yes, he feasibly could. The new rules are such that he can have a headset on. The new rules are such, Sean, he can go out on the field now and coach.
Could he talk to Dylan Raiola in the helmet headset? There's nothing stopping that.
No. Now this is all speculative, but I bet if you asked Holgorsen, he said, I could get myself ready to do that. I could do it. I know their personnel. I'm familiar with it. Now you have to learn their playbook and their verbiage. That's the trick. But smart guy, probably could get himself prepared enough. And now this is where people are going to say, stop. You guys are going crazy here. Are we? Are we going crazy?
It's all hands on deck right now.
They got to win 3, baby.
Yeah. They got to win. They got to win one more at least.
Yeah.
Against.
Well, I guess you shouldn't say they got to win.
They're going to win all 3.
No.
They could. Yeah. I think you'd be a little out over your skis.
Right. Yeah. But so now some of this on Monday, when Matt Rule again addresses the media, he might pour cold water on it a little bit, because the thing we haven't mentioned is what's the offensive staff thinking right now?
Well, Satterfield is on the road as we speak, recruiting for Nebraska. So, there's nothing that's changed with his assignments. He's still the offensive coordinator. He's still the play caller. He's still on the road representing Nebraska recruiting. You just brought in a guy that has a better resume than anybody on the offensive staff, though, to be behind the scenes.
And it's not close. It's not close. It's not. That's the thing. If you stack Holgorsen's resume and Holgorsen's production, the production of his offenses next to Marcus Satterfield, with due respect to Marcus Satterfield, who's, a fairly accomplished coach, it's not close. Well, this is a guy who's average, who we covered it the other day, has offenses that I believe 6 times have averaged 500 plus yards. He's had Graham Harrell. He's had Whedon. He's had Will Greer. He's had a line of good quarterbacks. He parlayed his play calling ability into 2 head coaching jobs. This is I don't think he's as big a name as Lane, but it's Dana Holgorsen is a household name in the sport of college football.
Well, he had a lot of his offensive success too without a lot of 4- and 5-star talent. He he identifies and kind of like Mike Leach. I mean, he finds 3-star type guys
Leach disciple
that fit the system. Mm-hmm. And, you know, at West Virginia and Houston, you're never going to have like top 10 recruiting classes. No. They still put up numbers and yards on everyone. So it is, I mean, he's right up there. I mean,
so what's going to happen, you know, and here's the other, okay, there's one element that we have not discussed. Dylan Raiola wants to be coached hard. Okay. He wants to learn. This guy can help that. Now, will he? Will Rule allow that? I don't know. I mean, I would think so, and I guarantee it. I mean it when I say guarantee it. Dylan would be receptive. I mean, Dylan wants to be coached hard. Okay, I mean, he wants to be an NFL quarterback. He wants to develop here. That's part of the deal. He wants to win here too, but along the way, he wants to develop. So, I like I like this idea of Rule pushing the envelope a little bit. And this is available to you at a higher level now, because in the past, Sean, like when Scott was the head coach, you couldn't do this. You couldn't bring in a guy and have him coach on the field and wear a headset.
I mean, Scott Frost, he got put on probation for it.
Yeah, exactly.
For having a special teams coordinator do too much in practice.
Right. So now that
analyst.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that anymore. These guys can go out on the field and coach if Rule wants them to.
All right, before we take it to headline number 4, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by Tanner's Sports Bar and Grill here in Lincoln on 30th and Yankee Hill, and also multiple locations all across the Omaha area. There is no better place to catch not only all the football action, whether it's Friday night Big Ten games, Saturday college football, Sunday NFL, but also Husker volleyball. Even when the games are on BTN Plus, Tanner's will have those games streamed across their locations. It's a premier sports bar, excellent wings, burgers, chicken lips, you name it. They have all the great food you're going to want while you're watching the games. Tons of different beers on tap as well. In Lincoln, it's 30th and Yankee Hill Road. Check out Tanner's. Go in there, watch the football this weekend. Get some wings, get a cold beer. You'll enjoy your time in there. There's no better sports bar in Lincoln or Omaha than Tanner's. Thanks to Tanner's for sponsoring us here on HuskerOnline Headlines. All right, headline 4. Let's take an early look at USC and the Trojans. And this is a Trojan team that in some ways is a lot like Nebraska. 3-point loss to Michigan, 7-point loss to Minnesota. 3-point loss in overtime to Penn State, 1-point loss to Maryland, a 5-point loss to Washington. So the Trojans have 5 losses.
4 and 5.
All 5, though, have been by 7 points or less. Mm-hmm. Their only win since September 28th is the Rutgers game, and that was like that midnight game on TV during the World Series. They beat Rutgers 42-20. So it's been a rough go of it. The Trojans, though, SIP, are going to make a quarterback change. Jaden Maiava from UNLV will get the start. He's a transfer, and he was a high-profile transfer. He was going to go to Georgia, and then he switched to USC. So this one will be something to watch, because this is a new starter that has not played for Lincoln Riley, at least in a starting quarterback role yet.
Gives you some things that Miller Moss didn't. Miller Moss, by the way, in the transfer portal.
Already?
Yeah. Check that out. Double check that.
It's not, well, the portal doesn't open until December.
Well, he announced he's going in.
He's declared that he will be, just to get the
ball rolling.
Well, Michigan will probably take him right now.
I think Michigan, that booster, that big time booster,
Dave Portnoy.
Yeah, I'm already hearing stuff. Anyway, so we're talking about Jaden Maiava. Is that how you pronounce it? Gives you a different. He's different. He's
call him Jaden so you don't butcher that.
6'4", 220-pound sophomore. I did watch him. He can run. I mean, he's a big pocket presence. First of all, 6'4", 220. Again, redshirt sophomore. The first highlight you'll see is a 47-yard TD pass that's obviously thrown on a rope. He is an accurate downfield thrower. And here's the thing, Sean. What he gives you that Moss didn't is he can run. 6'4", 220, and can runs the read option, runs the ball well. That's the scary thing. That's it.
He's not going to run for 100 yards a game.
No,
but he's a situational runner. Is probably the way to describe it. Like,
he ran for 277 yards,
and that's sacks included.
Yeah, at UNLV. UNLV last season ran for 277, 3.8 yards a carry, 3 TDs. That's a 9-5 team. But if you watch him run, you see he can run the read option. He's a very big, strong, capable runner. So that'll I always say it, Sean. In fact, if I were a head coach, I would almost mandate to my offensive staff, we need well, I don't want to go too far, but it's really good to have a coach or a quarterback that's a throw first guy who can also run, which Nebraska kind of has that right now in Dylan. This guy's a better runner than Dylan. Not as good a thrower as Dylan, though. He's not. He was a 3-star guy coming out of Honolulu. He was like the number 64 quarterback in the country. I mean, he wasn't super highly recruited.
He was a Mountain West Freshman of the Year, and if he's still at UNLV, you could argue that they would have a chance to be the representative in the playoff from the group of 5. I mean,
you like him that much?
Yeah. I mean, Georgia wanted him.
Yeah.
USC wanted him. I mean, for those teams to offer a portal quarterback, I mean, they're not just taking a depth guy.
No,
they're taking guys that they think they can take to the NFL.
Right.
Kirby Smart and Lincoln Riley are the two best QB evaluators arguably in the game,
right?
And they both wanted this guy. I mean, tells you all you need to know. I mean, I wanted to pull this up here on his rushing stats. He had 70 true rushes for 340 yards when you take out the sacks.
Okay.
His scramble yards, he had 183 scramble yards.
Yeah, he can scramble.
And 157 design run yards.
Okay.
So he will scramble a little bit. I mean, I don't want to make this guy out to be Vince Young, but he did have.
No, he's not.
He had 9 runs of 10+ yards as a quarterback. He did have 6 fumbles, though.
Interesting.
That's a lot of fumbles
because he carries it with one hand as he's doing in that photo. He does do it. That shows up on film. He carries the ball with one hand a little too much. But he is not Vince Young. He's not fast. He's not like fast like that. But he's a very functional runner. Probably a little better than functional.
34 yards is his long run at UNLV. 13 yards was the long run at USC.
Huge development at USC. He did compete with Miller Moss all throughout preseason camp, and Lincoln Riley portrayed it as a close race and said that Jaden made a huge jump from spring to August. So he was neck and neck with Miller Moss. Miller Moss won the job, but Miller Moss has guided USC to a 4-5 record and threw 3 interceptions against Washington on Saturday, and he's out. He's out of the program, I think. I mean, unless I got a little loose with that. I just heard it on another radio shows I was pulling in. So double check all that. I think Miller Moss is out.
Yeah, I don't want to speak on that. I haven't looked at that.
Yeah,
I didn't see it on my
little loose
notifications to verify that. So I don't want to.
I heard it on another. I heard it on another station as I was pulling in.
Hey, Sip, but USC, they close with Nebraska at UCLA, Notre Dame. I mean, for them to get to 6, I mean, I feel like the Big Ten in general, I mean, just to get to 6, it's not easy there's a lot of parity, and USC is going to be kind of in that 6-6 purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to get to 6, they've got to win 2 of 3 against Nebraska, UCLA, Notre Dame.
Won't be easy.
It will not be easy. All right. Before we take it to headline number 5,
okay.
Husker Online headlines brought to you by Vintage Custom Homes. And we've talked all about these guys out of Gretna, high level custom building. They don't just do homes, and they don't just serve Omaha. They'll go to they have builds right now in Council Bluffs, Arnold, Nebraska, North Platte. They'll do barn dominiums, outbuildings, pool houses, larger models, everything. Obviously, their specialty, those building and designing a custom home, but they're not just a home builder, and they do first-class, high-end work. Check out Vintage Custom Homes on their website. It's vintagecustomhomesne.com. Find out more about what they can do. Set up a time to talk with them. Send them a message. vintagecustomhomesne.com, as they're going to sit down and talk to you, and they're going to make sure that you find the best build that fits you And look, I would imagine with the election behind us, Sip, we're going to see a lot of building and a lot of things really pick up here in the coming months ahead, with just some of the economy things changing already. So now's the time. Get on the radar, get this meeting going, and check out Vintage Custom Homes. All right, let's go to headline 5, odds and ends. We like to do this to kind of close our shows every week. I want to hit on recruiting first because Matt Rule was in Fargo, North Dakota, West Fargo, to see Cade Pedchuk on Wednesday. He's going all around.
Where else is the big man going?
Today on Thursday, he's in Texas seeing Michael Terry, a 5-star receiver that Nebraska is recruiting still, and they're still in it with him, along with commits Malcolm Simpson and Bryson Weber.
Teams are coming after Simpson, it sounds like.
So
is that right?
Yes and no. I mean, Nebraska has done a pretty good job of keeping him at bay.
Okay.
I mean, at one point, Texas was mentioned. I mean, that was a month or 6 weeks ago. But we're closing in on the signing day. There's just not a lot of time to flip people. So you got to maximize this time out on the road. Jeremiah Jones out of Kentucky is another commit, who we have a 4-star ranking on now on three, and he's got Missouri and some other teams recruiting him hard. Rule will see him this week, as well as Jackson Cantwell, the 5-star 2026 offensive tackle in Missouri. The Huskers will have 11 coaches out on the road this week.
Jeez, big. I mean, that's big. It's a huge week. It's a really, because they're still in the midst of the season. They're still got to get ready for a big game against USC. So it's taxing. This is
it though. This is the only time they can go out before signing day this week. This is the last. I mean, they might go to the Class A state championship game in a couple of weeks, but you get your 33 days. And Rule will use 3 himself this week.
Okay.
And some coaches might only be out 1 day. I mean, it just depends how you want to parcel those 33 days. For every coach you have out, that's a day. So if all 11 are out, that's 11 days.
Okay.
So you have to be really strategic how you manage that. But they will have 11 coaches out for Nebraska this week, checking out a lot of guys. But
and people wonder, they're not practicing Friday, Saturday.
No. And the coach to Thursday, they held a practice, and Coach Rule obviously wasn't there because he's out recruiting today.
But Phil Snow and Dana Holgorsen.
Dana just took the whistle. We're joking, but we're not. But also Big Ten games of note. It's a bye weekend here. But across the Big Ten, I'm really interested in Iowa UCLA Friday. That kind of starts things off.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot. That's the only good Friday game this week. So
stop on that one for a second. That's Caleb Johnson, who's the number 2 rusher statistically in America, going against what now is the number 11 rush defense in the country. UCLA. So interesting matchup from that standpoint. I know Iowa fans that UCLA has got their attention against Nebraska. They know about Ethan Garbers now, the quarterback. They saw that defense. It's not bad. I mean, make fun of them, Nebraska fans, but they just beat you, and B, they have the 11th ranked rush defense in America. See what Caleb Johnson does. He hasn't been slowed down much.
In that nose tackle for UCLA, I mean, Iowa just historically, since Nebraska's been running a nose, like they've struggled with good nose tackles. We've seen Nebraska give Iowa even top level all Big Ten, all American centers. Nebraska's nose play over the last 7-8 years has given Iowa problems.
See what that looks like.
So that's something to watch. Minnesota could get to 7-3 if they win at Rutgers.
Jeez.
And as a Nebraska fan, that's what should get you upset. Like, yes, it's hard to win, but Minnesota is doing it with far less resources in recruiting class rankings than you are right now.
They are. Now they're also doing it with a coach who's in his 6th or 7th season.
Longer than that.
So he's had a chance to establish.
8th or 9th.
Yeah, I shouldn't have brought that up. But he's had a long time to establish that program. It's an established program. That's what you see. They know, Sean, they know exactly how they want to win. To the nth degree, and that's so valuable. But yeah, you tip your hat to PJ Fleck.
And I feel like Fleck is just kind of toned down. Like, I mean, he used to be kind of really loud, and I mean, he still is who he is, but he's really matured. Just when you see him, he's become a little bit more gristled.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I'm just really impressed with what he's doing, and that's an 11 a.m. game
on NBC.
NBC 11 a.m. game, and that'd be a good nap game. I don't think that's overly exciting. The big game in my mind, can't miss TV that I'll watch before the Nebraska basketball game is Michigan at Indiana.
That's
Indiana,
the CBS game.
Yeah, Indiana has a chance to continue its march towards the college football playoff, and they're a 14-point favorite. I'll be darned. But that's appointment TV for me because Indiana's probably the most intriguing story in college football.
If they hammer Michigan, which I think is very likely,
14-point favorite.
Man, that's not good for Sharon Moore.
Yeah, nothing's been good for Sharon Moore. He's got to find a quarterback. That's been the one issue. But their defense isn't exactly setting the world on fire anymore.
They give Michigan, which is likely right now, they're going to fall from the national championship to like the Detroit Bowl.
Right. Hard. That's hard. It's a hard situation. And you still have the NCAA breathing down your neck.
It reminds me of Nebraska. Now, Nebraska got beat by Miami in the Rose Bowl in 2002, but then in the 2001 season. But then in 2002, Nebraska took that big step back to be 7-7, and they played in the Independence Bowl.
Yeah, kind of reminds you
of that. And it, when I just remember how humbling, and we talk about that, how humbling it was after playing in the Rose Bowl, going to Disneyland, going to Lakers games, and that stage, the Heisman winner and Eric Crouch. Then the next year, you're playing in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Well, I'll tell you how humbling it was, or how Nebraska handled it well. I got to the stadium for practice. We got down to Shreveport. The Journal-Star was there. And I walked up to the stadium for Nebraska's practice with, as Rich Kaipost, I think, of the World Herald, and three guys, Jamal Lord, the quarterback, TJ Hollowell, the linebacker, and Darren Diedrich met us outside. And I've never had this happen until this moment. They thanked us for being there. They said, thanks. We appreciate you guys coming. They made it a point to greet us and say, thank you. We appreciate you guys coming.
And they played Eli Manning and Ole Miss.
Yeah. Dave Cutcliffe. Remember the fullback for Nebraska kind of took it upon himself to try a fake punt and threw a bad pass, sailed it, and that hurt him. Judd Davies. God bless him. He's a great fullback. He's a good fullback. And
he tried to throw a pass to Marquise Simmons.
Kind of took it upon
Marquise
himself.
Simmons, right?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, but he airmailed it.
I mean, it was just
he airmailed it.
Well, he checked into the fake punt. He checked
into it, yeah,
on his own. It wasn't like a called.
That's why he took it upon himself. I remember Kurt McKeever. I was working with him, and he told me, I'm going to get to the bottom of this.
Scott Frost.
I was like, why'd they do that? And he goes, I don't know, but I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
That was Scott Frost's first coaching job. They hired him to help for that bowl game.
Oh God, I can't remember.
Jimmy Burrow.
Is that right?
Hired Frost because they fired everybody. I mean, they had no defensive coaches.
Dude, let's be clear though. Frost had nothing to do with that special teams play.
No. All right. But we got the whiteout game, Washington at Penn State. That's
huge.
That's Peacock. On the Peacock though. You gotta
no, that's not happening.
You gotta log into the Peacock app and get that game on.
Paying for that game.
How about Ohio State? The ratings they pull, they can get a game against Purdue on Fox.
Who's watching that?
I know, but that Ohio State will still draw 2 or 3 million probably for a game on Fox
because they are, as Gus Johnson says, the world famous Ohio State.
Maryland at Oregon, that does nothing, but it's 26-point spread.
Yeah, it doesn't know.
But this Big Ten in general, when you look at the standings right now,
yes,
you got 4 playoff teams today. If the playoffs were tomorrow, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana are in.
And there's not going to be anybody else, by the way.
But what's happened is when those 4 teams are all 8-1 or 9-0, they're all beating everybody else. So what it's created is this pack of 5 and 6 win teams. I believe there's 7 of them. And Nebraska finds itself in this rugby scrum of 5 to 6 win teams right now. And at one point you felt like they were at the top of that scrum. And as the weeks have gone on, they've kind of fallen to the bottom of that scrum. And that's what these last few weeks mean for Nebraska. Can they claw back up that rugby scrum of 5, 6 win teams today and push up to be a 6, 7, 8 win team? which, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, the teams at the top of that scrum behind the top four are Iowa and Minnesota and Illinois at 6 and 3.
I would put Iowa squarely at the top of the rugby scrum.
Okay.
After the playoff teams.
Okay. Maybe I will give you that.
They hammered Minnesota and they hammered Wisconsin.
Let's see what they do against UCLA.
But they hammered Minnesota. They hammered Wisconsin.
They did.
So that should get your attention. But they lost to Michigan State.
No, I hear you.
But yeah, it's like the NFL where you've got like the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens at the top, and then you've got a bunch of teams that are vying to be the final play, like a 3 or 7-7 or 8-8 or 8-7 in an NFL team.
So yeah, So then we mentioned the 6-win teams, and you have 5-4 Wisconsin, 5-4 Washington, 5-4 Michigan, 5-4 Nebraska. You don't want to be you don't want to be those bottom. You just don't want to be the bottom teams. The last thing I'm going to mention is Maryland and Rutgers, the disappointment of Maryland and Rutgers, we thought maybe they get out of that old East division with the big guns in it, Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan. You thought maybe they would thrive, but they haven't. I mean, unfortunately, Maryland and Rutgers are, 4-4 down at the bottom, not as bad as Purdue, but just a notch above them. So there's the Big Ten.
Nebraska needs a quality Big Ten win, though. I mean, today, right now, Rutgers and Purdue don't count as quality wins. I mean,
they don't.
They've got to beat somebody.
They don't. I thought Rutgers might at the time, but they just went on a swoon. Yeah, you just wonder about Schiano's program a little bit. What happened this year? What happened?
I mean, I think they really override Monungai too much.
Maybe a little bit of that.
I mean, I think they need more. And look, Kaliamontis is just not
Kaliagmanis.
I said it right.
Did you?
Or are you just trying to?
Yeah. I thought you said Montes. Anyway, he's just limited.
Yeah, I mean, he is what he's
limited.
Minnesota now looks pretty smart to bring in the transfer from the FCS ranks.
Max Brosmer.
He's been. I mean,
he's been all right.
The opening game, I'm like, he's not that good, but
good.
he's come on.
He's been good. They're a program though, and they play very good complementary football. And I just, like I said, I give Fleck a lot of credit because of what they're doing right now.
They're punching their way up that scrum.
Yep, that's exactly right. I'd like to see Nebraska in these last 3 games punch its way up the scrum. Do something that I've said it before, my old sports editor, Todd Hendricks, used to tell me all the time with column writing. Surprise me. Do something, Nebraska. Go to LA and surprise us. Okay.
Yeah, put together a game. Like put the Ohio State game together, but win.
You know what you know what a nice surprise would be, Sean? Surprise me. Dante Dowdell, run for 130. Get him the ball and run for 130 against an undersized front for USC.
That struggled against Michigan and other teams that want to run.
Right.
All right. Well,
surprise me, Sean.
Good show.
Yeah.
I'm going. Where are you going for the bye?
I'm working the game on Saturday.
Bethune-Cookman?
Yeah. Yeah, I can't go far.
Did Bethune-Cookman bring the band?
I don't think
I'm just kidding. Yeah,
so no, I'll be eating the press room food. I'm kind of half looking forward to it. I'm watching 2:30 Michigan, Indiana on Saturday. We'll probably write a column from Dannen, at some point tomorrow, because there's a lot there. Like I think there's 2 or 3 columns from that thing. I mean,
yeah, that was great. I'm heading down to Kansas City to catch the Chiefs. First Chiefs game I've been doing over 20 years.
Really?
Yeah, I went.
Now that surprises me.
Well, it's hard to go. Like, we work.
I know.
The last time I went to a Chiefs game was a preseason game because my college roommate is Chris Brown's brother-in-law, and we watched Chris kick for the Texans in a preseason game.
Chiefs versus who?
Houston. This is Denver.
Oh.
So I'm going to hopefully connect with Parker Gabriel. It's a noon game, which works out good to get back.
This Parker Gabriel, of whom you speak, is he's the beat writer deluxe for the Denver Post. He basically runs the coverage of the Denver Broncos. He does.
So we've coordinated a meeting point to hopefully say hi before the game.
Good, because Parker's the best.
So we'll head up to Kansas City, and hopefully Mahomes puts on a show for my daughters.
Yes, he will. You know that. He'll put on a show.
All right. Well, if you're not a member of Husker Online, we got a great promo. Use the promo code Husker40 and receive $40 off your annual subscription. That's promo code Husker40. That's the best deal we're going to give you at Husker Online. For Steve Sipple, Athletic Director Troy Dannen, I'm Sean Callahan signing off here for another edition of Husker Online Headlines.